I'm going to walk you through organizing an expository essay using the 6 traits of writing method. Today we are going to focus on ideas, organization, sentence fluency, and conventions. The prompt for today is to explain why it is more important to do what is right rather than what is popular. Now we need to remember that when we are organizing an essay, we must have a thesis statement. That is your point. It is the answer to the prompt. It is the most important part of your essay. To support your thesis statement, you must have a main example using either a personal anecdote, which is a story or an experience that you are personally acquainted with. You can also refer to a historical event or a historical figure, or you can refer to a current event or a current figure. Now, in order to further explain your examples and to further prove your thesis, you will use supporting details in the form of snapshots, which will paint a perfect image for your reader and help to further support your claim. Somewhere within your essay, you must have a truism, which is a universal truth, where people from all over the world can agree with it. It can go anywhere within your essay, by the way, and then you must have a meaningful conclusion. Using this handout, it is a great way for you to organize your thoughts. Think of this as your brainstorming or your pre-writing page. Let's get started with forming our thesis statement and using our specific example. To form a thesis statement, I like to use the thesis square method. On the paper that you picked up when you came into class today, you'll notice that you have on the left-hand side 2 boxes, one for the thesis and one for the example. What I'd like for you to do is in the first square, decode the prompt, which means to put it into your own words so that you better understand it. The prompt is to explain why it is more important to do what is right rather than what is popular. If I decode this statement, I'm going to say that doing what is right isn't always popular. I'm not regurgitating the thesis, and I have put it in my own words, and I've also made it easier for me to manage and understand what I want to cover in my paper. In the box below that, I want you to choose one specific example to help focus on that will help support your thesis. I'm going to use a historical example from Abraham Lincoln, who did what was right even though it wasn't popular at the time, and that was he abolished slavery when half of the country opposed his efforts. Now you have both your thesis in the first box and your example in the second box. Underneath that, you see several lines. I want you to write your 2 sentences that you just wrote in your boxes together. You may have to add words in order to make it flow. I wrote, doing what is right isn't always popular. For example, Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery during a time when half of the country opposed his efforts. You'll notice if you see it on my handout, I've done just what I'm asking you to do. Once you get your thesis statement with your example sentence written, rewrite it over on the right-hand side of the page in the box labeled Thesis with Example. You will notice now that my thesis statement is color-coded in purple and my example is color-coded in blue. Now then, what I need to do next is I've got to write my hook. The hook is also one of the most important items in your paper. It is said that graders only allow 90 seconds per essay. If you do not take the time to hook your reader with an excellent attention getter, nor if you do not have a strong thesis statement with a good example, then you probably aren't going to score well because they're not going to give it much more attention. They'll stop at the first paragraph. So we want to make sure that we hook our reader with an excellent attention getter. Now I've created a fictional snapshot. I'm going to read it to you. Running in terror for his life, fearful to look over his shoulder at what or whom may be closing in on him, hoping that in half a mile he will finally be a free man, Isaiah, slave of the Smith family, chases what should rightfully already belong to him, freedom. Doing what is right isn't always popular. For example, Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery during a time when half of the country opposed his efforts. My hope is that with my hook and the idea that Isaiah is a slave running for his life, trying to escape just over the northern border so that he will find his freedom, I'm hoping that that will catch my reader's attention and that then it will flow easily into my thesis statement so my reader will know what I'm going to talk about, and then how I'm going to prove myself is through the Emancipation Proclamation that Abraham Lincoln passed. So I have written my first paragraph. Your first paragraph is a hook, a thesis, and your example. Your second paragraph is where you begin using your specific details and then your commentary. I'm going to start off my specific details, or my second paragraph, with continuing the snapshot of Isaiah and other slaves like him who deserve their freedom because it is the right thing to do and the lawful thing to do. So my snapshot will read, because President Abraham Lincoln chose to do what was morally and lawfully right. Just notice that I connected Abraham Lincoln and my idea here again. Isaiah and thousands of slaves like him were finally able to live what was guaranteed to them under the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal and have the unalienable rights to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Not only did I create that snapshot, but I also drew in phrases from the Declaration of Independence to show my reader that I do indeed know what I'm talking about here, and that I could be considered, quote unquote, an expert in the subject. Now, I can't just stop there. I have to give some commentary in the second paragraph, which means I have to express my own ideas to tie everything together. So after my snapshot, I am going to write my commentary, which says, President Lincoln, a man both admired and fiercely hated for his decision to abolish slavery, to fight half of the American population in order to faithfully execute his job, which is to protect all human beings, when he passed the Emancipation Proclamation. The proclamation declared Isaiah to be free forever. Once again, I pulled in information from the Declaration of Independence, and once again, I'm showing my reader that I understand what I'm talking about, and I'm able to connect my ideas to my thesis and my example. Now then, I've written my first paragraph and my second paragraph. Now it's time for my meaningful conclusion. I'm going to do it in the form of a snapshot and then finish up with my lesson to be learned, which is how I'm going to reiterate my thesis statement. So I'm going to tie the two snapshots I've already written about. I'm going to tie them together with this last snapshot. Isaiah and thousands like him who escaped to find their freedom in the North was able to rescue his family from the oppressive South and move them to New York, where they lived freely. Thankfully, the thousands of other former slaves who remained in the South, however, were also able to live freely because Abraham Lincoln, there's my example, and here's my thesis again, courageously chose to do what was right rather than what was popular. Not one time did I regurgitate the thesis statement. I turned it into my own words, I used my own example, and I used snapshots to bring my writing to life. Following the expository essay rubric, I know that I have at least a score point 3 or 4. Let's run it through and see what we have here. I'm going to give myself a score point 3 for organization and progression. I think I can do a little bit better with that, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. I'm also going to give myself a score point 3 for the development of ideas. I did a great job, but I bet there's one or two things that I could probably fix to enhance it to a score point 4. And then for use of language and conventions, even though I have a misspelled word and I'm missing a comma in my rough draft, it's still pretty darn decent. So I'm going to give myself a score point 4. Thus, that results in a 3. It's not bad, but I can do better. All right, so remember, our prompt is to explain why it is more important to do what is right rather than what is popular. This is my planning paper. It should look very similar to yours now. Like I said, I gave myself a 3, but I'm going to get that score point 4. How can I do it? Well, I have to fix my concluding paragraph. It needs a little bit more. So I'm going to run it through the so what method. The so what method is basically asking you what lesson can be learned from your idea. You've got to leave your reader with something thought-provoking. Make them remember your idea. If you're going to work this hard to write such an excellent paper, you want it to be memorable. So what you do in the so what method is you ask yourself, I wonder. So I sat back and I thought to myself, I wonder what would have happened to all of the slaves had Abraham Lincoln not enacted the Emancipation Proclamation, if he hadn't have done what was morally right and lawful. Would we still be living in a society like that? My answer is Isaiah and every slave would have suffered even longer, both unjustly because it wasn't moral, and unlawfully, because it was against the law. It broke the Declaration of Independence. So the answer to my I wonder question will go into my conclusion. I wonder questions and answers always deal with humanity. This is the real world writing that we're looking for. This is the connections you need to make with your reader. So what I did is I took my I wonder statement, combined it with my thesis statement, with my answer to the so what question, and it reads, had Abraham Lincoln not enacted the Emancipation Proclamation when he did, if he hadn't have done what was morally right and responsible, Isaiah and every slave would have suffered even longer, both unjustly and unlawfully. That's going to help further prove my thesis statement. And you'll notice the orange text down in the meaningful conclusion is where I just put my so what method sentence. And by doing that, I have taken my organization and progression, because I have given my readers something to think about. That bumps it up to a 4. Development of ideas, since I only have 26 lines, I did the best that I could, so I'm going to give myself a 3. Had I had 2 pages, I probably could have gotten it to a 4, but I'm okay with the 3 on that, because I have a great use of language and conventions. I corrected my grammar and my misspelled word, so I'm going to give myself a 4, thus resulting in a score 0.4 on my essay. That's a perfect score. So today what you're going to do is you're going to complete your rough draft. Next time, you're going to take your rough draft, we're going to run it through the edit and revising system, and then you're going to write your final copy. And then, when we are finished with our essays, we, of course, are going to participate in Survive the Writing Challenge, where you guys are going to get into your groups, and you're going to use the rubric that you have in front of you, and you are going to read each essay in your group. You're going to write 3 specific compliments on the back of each essay, and you're going to write 3 constructive criticisms on the back of each essay. And then you're going to rank them into 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. The best way for you to learn is from each other. These are going to be some examples of good feedback we want to give our peers. And then we're going to discuss how you did. And then you are going to give me a report as well, telling me what 3 improvements you've made so far in all of the writing that we've done, and what 3 things you're still weak on that I can help you with. And that's it.